to order.
The president select we are back in session. Vice Councilor present, all members of our jury and alternates are present. The meeting may continue your examination.
And we had image L from 55 on the screen. This is where we left off. This was the scale measurement one that showed, I think, the same information from the other one. The next image you had was image M, which shows Cooper Street scale measure width truck. Does that, looking at that image, do you recall what we're particularly trying to show with this image?
I'm not sure what these numbers are. They're overlaying each other. So 9.7, 9.76 here. 8. I'm not sure.
Maybe you can see it on this one right here. I don't know.
Yeah, so the 9758 was the measured blue gaze. Which, by the way, there was a correspondence in the sense you said I didn't document it, but if you look at the three-dimensional model, in the model, we discussed in meters. I think it was 2-point-something meters, whatever that number was. Well, actually, feet and meters relate through, you have to multiply meters by 3.05, and then you get feet. So, which I did. And so you get 2.9, whatever, 7 meters. So, and I don't know what that thing said. So you can then check if it's the same or not. But I don't remember whatever it says.
So again, up to this point, everything looked like it corresponded. Then you went to the fact of, wait a minute, there's a tailpipe. What appears to be a tailpipe in the evidence video, correct?
Okay, I don't know if it's corresponding. You have to go and check. If you could put an image of three-dimensional model of that trooper.
Oops, sorry.
You have a picture like that.
Sorry.
And it's trooper measure BMP. The other one. There was the one sideways. Let me show you which one. Yep. Okay. Oh, okay. Wonderful. It's 2.78. So it's 2.8. And it's 2.8, the ground truth, and we're measuring 2.97. Okay. So let me write it down. So we're doing photogrammetry as we speak. 2.97, and that was 97, which is 9.76.
You said 2.97, but
Oh, no. Okay, let's just do this guy. 2.788. If you don't mind.
sure.
Just take all the digits, just in case. Okay, I'll just take all the digits, 2.788, and I get, so that's the ground truth, and this is 2.78 truth, which ends up being 914, 9, so it's 915. 915 feet. So that's from the model. And then if you go back to the street, you have numbers 9.758. So 9.758 versus 915, so there is roughly 0.6 feet disparity. Which means not good. It's not it. Just by that, it's not it. That's assuming that it's sitting on the ground. Again, that's very important because you're getting measurement that is, the truth measurement is 915 and this measurement is 9.76. So it's either it's not sitting on the ground or it's a different vehicle.
Okay. Now, one thing during your analysis, you made the daytime fusion, and I'll show you exhibit, or excuse me, picture N from that exhibit, where you took the daytime picture and overlaid it with the nighttime video, correct? Yeah. And this gives a nice clear image of the neighborhood in relation to the nighttime video. Would that be the purpose?
It's just I needed it for one of the steps because when I combine it with the laser scan, I need that video.
Now the illumination that you marked on the Zuzu Trooper as the back light, you can see that travel through the screen, correct?
Yes?
Would it be fair to say that that looks like a light on the vehicle in the rear end?
Objection, leading call for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you treat that as a light on the rear of the vehicle during your analysis?
In a Isuzu analysis or in the white truck analysis?
And just your analysis overall?
Right. Actually, in both cases, I conjectured that this is a physical something on the model, and the only thing that I could see it could be is a light on the, whatever that specific light on the trooper, and or a specific light, what we call a running light, on the white truck, which you would have to put a picture of a white truck to see what that thing is.
And we will get to that.
So yes, I have to associate it with something. It's not something, right? It's a physical something.
Okay. Getting to the white truck. So you received a Faro scan of the white truck, correct?
Yes.
And that's image O in exhibit 1150. Image O is the correct image for the Faro scan for the white truck you used?
That's the first scan, yes, the original scan.
Looking at image P, this is again showing the points that you marked on the white truck, correct? And how it corresponds to the evidence video?
One of the configurations, yeah. That's a 10-point configuration, what I call 10-point thing.
So let's see. Yeah, they're all on the screen. So again, we marked number 1 as the top left point of the headlight. Number 10, top right portion of the headlight, correct? On the passenger side?
Yeah. I mean, the point that I could find, there was not a hole.
Right.
It's a big explanation there, but you cannot click all the points on that thing because it's kind of like what do you call that? Sieve? There's so many holes that you touch something and it ends up on the other end. So that was the best position I could find for the upper right, number 10, right? You see it a little bit off the corner, but but there's a reason, because when you actually position it right on the corner, there's a microscopic hole, and it ends up in the tail of the car.
And so for the physical scan, it's the laser bouncing off the solid object and comes back, and that's what records the data point, correct?
Yes.
And then the program puts it all together, so it comes into a model that's a visual of all the data points from the laser scan.
Correct. But it has holes, obviously, for a reason.
So if there's something that doesn't hit, whether it be opening for in the grill or a piece of glass, it doesn't allow you to mark a point if there's no solid place there. Is that what you're trying to say?
I think you should talk to fair people. I don't know. I have my ideas, but
Okay. You put number 5 point on the bottom right of the headlight of the passenger side, correct?
yes.
And the number 4 point on the bottom left of the headlight on the passenger side.
Which number?
4? I'm pointing it to behind you.
Yes.
Okay. And then, let's see, you have number 6, which is in red, which is the passenger side of the front bumper.
Yes.
Number 3, which is the something that's on the front of the bumper on the passenger side, below the headlight.
Some boxy thing.
Then you put number 8 on the center decal in the grille for Chevrolet.
Yes.
Number 2 is the left top of the driver's side headlight.
Yes.
Number 7 is the bottom left of the headlight on the driver's side.
Yes.
And then number 9 in the top left there is the light that's on the rear and on the side of the truck in the back.
Yes.
Now, you did not mark around the parking lights, correct? You only marked around the headlight.
By parking lights, you mean the lights underneath the front lights?
Correct. I kind of am pointing to the image behind you, and you're not seeing it. You're looking at the screen. So yes, you did not mark it around this light, correct?
No, because we can't see it we can't see anything like this in the image, I think.
In the evidence image.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So then, you also have Q, which is another image that also shows the data points you marked, correct?
Okay.
The same points again? And it's more of a frontal view, so it's easier for you to see where it is in relation to the parts of the truck to the front. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
And those correspond to the points of the truck as placed. As
That's-
you had
Yeah, that's reprojection.
the reprojection, that were kind of, these are images that you kind of had together going on your screen, correct?
Yes.
And these are those, again, you had these combined, those save points that were on the image, correct?
Yeah,
This is
that's,
the evidence image.
this is the actual point that we clicked in the image, yes.
Now, underneath the points 4 and 5, and above 3 and 6, you said you can't see the running light, correct, in the evidence image?
Yeah, I can see it.
And this is the work that you were doing during your, working through your analysis, right?
Yes.
What I want to show you now is Exhibit 795. And I showed you this at the 402 hearing, an image from it. This is a video image. It's a video of my client's actual truck. Can you see the running lights in the video of the actual truck?
I mean, possibly those are, yes. But I don't know which vehicle it is. I don't know.
It's been testified that that is the actual truck that the Faro scan was taken of that you used in your work.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I've never seen this picture.
I understand. I'm just telling you the prior testimony was, this is a video of my client's white truck. With the barrel scan you received of that they did of this truck. That's what it looks like on video.
Oh, okay, but I didn't do this testimony.
You
Somebody
did
else.
not.
Okay,
You were not provided this video, were you?
no.
Going back to number R, this is a stable, as you labeled it, the video evidence stable. Can you explain what this is? I'll play it a couple times with this.
Pretty terrible. Okay. If it's stable, let me see. I have to put a point. What is stable here?
I don't know, that's what you titled it. You titled it vehicle evidence stable one.
Normally I stabilize something, so it should be stabilization of, it's not showing correctly. I'm not sure why. I mean, my images are much cleaner than this.
Is the frame
Can you put
used?
it on a loop? Do you know how to do that?
I'll have to do it with a different open. Or, yes, I can.
The stable image that, I'm sorry, video that I produced was the stabilization of the rear
It's not working with that now.
rear illuminated part at some point. Okay. Well, I guess, okay, I tried to stabilize around the front lights here.
So the vehicle is stable and the frame's moving around it.
Right. So if I put my pen on, let's say, you see this thing is in place, but then it runs out of it.
Right.
So it's stabilizing with respect to front lights.
What I found interesting in this is it appears that the headlights are slowly moving down from the overhang. They're getting farther and farther away from the overhang. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And the same with the bright object at the rear of the vehicle is also moving further and further away from the overhang. Would that be fair?
Yes.
And if you look, now you also said one thing you can do is, earlier when you're doing photogrammetry, is you will take fixed points and see height of where something crosses a fixed point, and you can get a height measurement from that, correct?
Correct.
And if something else passes that same point, then you can make a determination of whether or not their heights are relative to one another in distance, correct? So like if there's a marker on the wall and a 6-foot person walks by and another person walks by and they hit the mark the same part, you can say, well, that person's probably 6 foot tall as well or close to it.
Yeah, if you're against the mark, but if you're not against the mark, you're doing something else.
Correct. So if you look on the edge of the video, that doesn't move, right? The edge of the video.
First one. By edge of the video, you mean the overhang?
I mean this, the edge of the video.
I'm not sure what you mean by the move.
Well, this is constant, right? That's where the video camera only reaches to that far side, and that's, you could say, is a
The
point.
whole thing moves, right? Because you stop the vehicle, when you do stabilization, you stop the vehicle, but you move the camera.
Okay.
So you actually reverse the physics in order to. But in a real video, that edge doesn't move because camera is stationary. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct. And we'll get to that bit.
Good. here an edge obviously moves, right? It's raining.
Right. So one thing. So then you took the daytime image and you did a fusion with the 3D model, correct? And you placed the white truck based on the identifying points that you marked on the 3D model, correct?
Right.
And this is what the program says how they line up to the best it can.
Under this configuration, yes. Meaning these points on that model and those points on that model.
And so in this layout, you can have the rear marker light that was marked on the truck actually shows in the video, you think?
Yes.
Do you know the error rate or the error ratio of these measurements?
There are no measurements here. This is just your projection. There's no measurement in it.
Did you do that later on and see if this is an accurate representation?
Yes.
And what was the error ratio for this measurement?
Oh, error ratio was very small. For your projection mapping.
And what were the measurements?
Okay, now you.
What were the percentages, I should say?
Okay, so this is different things. So think of it as like going to a doctor and having a blood test and then MRI. Okay, they may be looking for the same thing, but in a different way, and they give you different information. So reprojection mapping is a step one to say, is it even possible that this bunch of pattern, whatever, what I call Christmas tree, at night, that we think it's a car, is it possible that that's that toy model made by a ferro laser scanner? So that's a test number one. And that measures that error. And if that error is acceptable, we say, yeah, we cannot reject. We cannot reject. And it physically means that there could be a position of that thing, that object in a three-dimensional space that will actually match when you look with the camera, it will match it that way. Okay? So that's test number one, and that passed that test. Measurement is like doing MRI after blood test, right? So you need a, and so that's a different set of tests.
Okay, but for this to work, the marker light on the back of it has to be within the picture frame, correct?
This to work, or what to work?
For this fusion to match up or to correspond with those points.
Yes. So the algorithm found a position, physical position of a vehicle, so that when the camera looks through, it will see it that way, that it will match it. It's actual physical position, it's possible. But physical from the point of view of algorithm turns out not to be physical from the point of view of reality. We can talk about it if you need, if you want to ask me about this. No?
No,
Okay.
that'll take too long.
No, it's not. It's basically, it shows a vehicle pushed underground. So it took this, in order to match it, because it turns out to be wrong point. I don't know if the jury knows. It's a wrong point. So, but it was the only one we had, okay? And we had no idea that it's the wrong point. That's the only reasonable conjecture one can make, unless you come up with a whole bunch of other theories, which I didn't come up with. So the only way it could match is the algorithm says, okay, I can't match it. I can't match it on the ground. So I have to push it down. So it turns out, we made a measurement later, it pushed it 1 foot down into the ground. But because you look at it like an X-ray, to you it looks like it's sitting on the ground, but actually it's pushed down. So it took this vehicle and it did this. And we are looking at it and we're seeing it like it's okay, but it's not okay. And then when we did the measurement, we found that measurement was not jiving the same way, and that gave us an idea, oh, that length is shorter than it should be. That means the only way it can be if it's underground, because what's further away, certain size, shows up as something shorter, closer to you, okay?
Right.
It's a low projection. I don't know if I jumped too fast on this.
You did not. So based on then marking that as the only thing that can have that reflective illumination, then if it has to be pushed into the ground for it to fit, would that be excluded?
Yeah, it should be excluded, yes.
Now, when you testified, you kept mentioning a 402 hearing. You testified previously in this matter when the jury wasn't present, correct?
Yes,
And that was the beginning of February 2019.
yes.
And you said that this truck was, it's consistent, or let me say, it was neither consistent nor inconsistent with the video at the time when you testified.
I may have said something. I said I could not reject. That's what I said
And then
at that time.
at that time. And then after that hearing, you kept working, didn't you?
I kept thinking.
And you started doing further analysis?
I just realized what mathematics doesn't lie. We were getting too short measurements, and I was trying to interpret it, and in my mind, and I realized that was truck on the ground. It's not the truck on the ground. This is what I realized, and then I went and I confirmed it by other means.
And that was after you testified in February.
It was within a week after that. Roughly.
And did you inform the prosecution of this?
Objection, relevance,
Abstain.
violates the court's previous ruling.
Abstain.
Were you told to stop working?
Objection, relevance, violates the court's ruling.
Abstain.
Were you ever called as a witness in this trial before us today?
Objection, relevance, violates the court's ruling.
I think it's obvious he wasn't called before
Right.
today.
Well, let's see who remembers going something like that. Okay. Then you were following the trial after that hearing date, correct?
Say it again, please.
You were following the trial as to what was going on with the trial after the hearing in February.
Objection, reading seems facts unnoted.
Sustained on that ground as well as relevancy.
Well, it's foundational. Did you,
Well, it sounds like it's foundational to the matters that we're going to address this afternoon.
it's different. Did you follow what witnesses were called in the trial? After February.
Not for about a month.
Did you discover that a Mr. Licio testified in this case?
Yes, I did.
Did you watch his testimony?
Originally, I just listened to it on YouTube. There was no visual available to public.
After seeing, or excuse me, after listening to that testimony, did you call me?
Yes, I did.
Why'd you call me?
Well, for several reasons. It would, several reasons.
Like?
Well, number one is I was surprised that something called reprojection, live reprojection validation experiment was not done. And I wanted to see, I already been turned down by prosecution on this request in writing. And so I knew that there's no point in asking them. So I called you, hoping that maybe you would see the reason and do that, because that was one consistent thing that I wanted.
Let me stop you there. When you're saying a live reproduction, I think it is, can you,
I call it live reprojection. I use different names. It's basically a validation study. It's live reprojection validation study.
describe what you wanted to do?
Well, for many reasons, you may ask me, we can talk. I mean, I was not satisfied with either interpretation of computational result. It was kind of a borderline on both ends. It was first borderline reject, and then, borderline non-reject, and then it was a borderline reject. And the error can come computationally, even in the best possible method. There are errors. So, by the way, there was if you want to talk about errors, we can talk about things I've seen on that video you gave me. And my data, it was not perfect. So my truck was not perfect. You saw the holes and all of that. That actually shows in the computation. And also the 3D scan, it looks worse than Los Angeles with, what do you call them? They're holes, actually. Potholes. I mean, it's a really bad scan. And so possibly there are some errors there due to that. And then there's certainly computation. No computation is perfect. So the only way I thought that to resolve all of this in my mind is to do something very simple. Anybody can understand it. If you have a video with a truck, with an object, and the camera is still there and it hasn't moved, and if it's moved, we have enough math to fix that, and it hasn't moved. So why not to put truck right there, maneuver in just the way that we thought it was, and find a position so that the patterns match or don't match. And then we exhaust all the possibilities and we record that. And then we know if we match, if we're lucky, we find it, okay, then cannot reject, of course. Okay. So if we cannot find it, it's either because our driver is not good enough, but there are some very good drivers out there. So we've done those experiments before. So that's called live reprojection. And we have a software. We created a software, a beautiful piece of software, if I may say so. I'm not just advertising, mathematically beautiful. That helps you to find that position, helps a driver to go where he needs to go, because we know actually where our computation takes us. So we can actually guide a driver. So this would take like an hour or two max. And so from what I understood in February, for the first time I understood that A, the truck is available, and B, the camera is still there, and it's possible to go there. This was my understanding. So once I knew that, I'm a scientist, and the basis of science is experiment. It's been since 1600s. I mean, any theory can be wonderful and beautiful, but the theory should follow by experiment. And in this case, experiment would be the crown jewel of this whole process. So that's why I called you. That's reason number one. And there are like 3 or 4 more reasons, but I can talk about it or no.
When you wanted to do the reprojection, you were just trying to be thorough, right?
Because that's science. I mean, if we start arguing, somebody says it's rain. It's raining there. And somebody said, no, it's a sunny thing. So let's just compare our mathematical theories here. Or maybe just open the door or window and check if it's raining.
Right.
Okay? So this is what I was suggesting. It's common sense.
You want to be thorough.
I want it to be logical.
You want to be accurate.
Scientific.
You
That's
want
the
to be
word.
complete.
Scientific, that's the word. If you can do experiment, you have to do experiment. That's science. It's like ABC of science. You have to do it.
And you said you wanted to do that to be thorough and accurate and complete, you were told no.
Well, in slightly different words, no, yes. We don't have time, this kind of thing.
Now you talked about.
I can read exactly somewhere in my emails. It says we're not going to do it. I'm sorry.
Now you said you listened to Mr. Licio's testimony and you contacted me. I sent you video of the projections of what he was doing for the jury, correct?
Yes.
And so you can see the work that Mr. Licio presented to the jury.
Yes, because it was torturous to listen through that with audio.
And
Because without images, it was hard. But I understood that there was no experiment.
were there any part of his presentation or testimony you find were incorrect or inaccurate?
Objection.
Yes.
And what parts were that you disagree with?
His conclusion.
Anything else?
Oh, that's a big one, huh?
Right?
Well, how he arrived to that conclusion, obviously, I would not disagree with his conclusion if there was not something along the way that I didn't agree with.
So you disagreed with some of the process and the conclusion?
No, there's nothing wrong with the process. He basically used my process, which I believe I invented, but he used the imperfect tools. He didn't have the tools. The process went with the tools that we designed over a period of 5 years. And so he used 2 pieces of software, one of which is a legitimate photogrammetry software, but was not designed for this specific task. I think it's called Photomodeler. And the second one was a wonderful piece of software, Max 3D, which is an animation software, which certainly was not designed for forensic video photogrammetry investigation. It's a wonderful animation thing. And so he did the best he could with these pieces of software, but it's like Swiss cheese. There are lots of holes there. It looks beautiful, like CSI. I mean, I like the presentation. It looks wonderful. But as a mathematician, I can find a lot of holes.
What holes do you find?
Okay. How much time do I have?
How much time do you need?
Okay. So, all right. Let's start with just a few big ones. And again, that's not. I mean, he is a bright engineer. He's definitely a good engineer in 3D. In 3D scanning or whatever, but he's not a mathematician. So he uses somebody's software with somebody's algorithms, so he may not realize that there are holes there. It may not be his holes.
Objection, that calls for speculation, lacks foundation, move strike.
Well, I just complimented him. Okay. So, hole number 1. He is explaining at some point how he transfers the laser image to the daytime image. Let me point it again. If you look in 402, I drew a diagram, steps, which I followed. Okay, and there are like roughly 7 or 8 steps. Okay, I don't remember exactly how many. And so I may say so that there is no publication in the world, and I looked at publications that chose this method. Okay, so the method is original.
If I show you behind you, is this the
Yes, yeah, this is the
presentation you
diagram.
created?
Correct. So this is the diagram that describes from start to the end the process. So you can follow those steps. He repeated the steps basically. Okay, he repeated with the 2 different pieces of software. So he starts with the an evidence. We can talk about it. So he starts with an evidence image. Where should I turn?
Towards the microphone, so they can make sure they can hear you. That way's perfect.
Okay, so we start with an evidence image, so that's here. We take a 3D model, so that's here. Okay. So then we basically create, well, this step creates what we call projection matrix that combines the daylight image and the evidence image. And then basically what we call calibrate does the calibration of the camera, which actually puts the camera, figures out where the camera is in this laser image and puts it there and finds exactly where it is. And by doing so, you then know when you move your, whatever he's doing after that, you know how it looks in the image. Okay? So he follows that path. Okay? So that's the path, so there's nothing wrong with it, it's correct. Okay? But when he actually determines that position of the camera and orientation of the camera, and I think calibration parameters that go into that, which is the main ones are focal lengths and something called optical center. He even talks about it. Then he shows, I don't remember when in the presentation, he shows the image and then he shows the overhang from the 3D scan, and they don't match. Now that's like a warning flag to any photogrammetrist. That means that there is an error in projection mapping. And the way he explains it, he says, oh well, you see this overhang doesn't have any features to click. And the video has no features to click in that part. And I know it's hard for the jury to. I'm doing it for the record. Some photogrammetrists will examine it one day. So he says, oh, you need to put those points. Without those points, you cannot match anything. Well, wrong. Because the theory says you only need 6 points. There are 11 equations. I talked about it before too. There are 11 equations with the 11 unknowns. Okay? 1 point gives you two equations. So you need what? You need 5.5 points. But there's no such a thing. Only mathematicians can think of 5.5 points. So you take 6. With 6 points, you should be able to do everything if you take the right 6 points. He should have matched those correctly. Well, somehow he didn't, and it's not his fault, I think. It's he used some software that was not specifically for that. Okay, they do some wonderful stuff, but not that. Okay, I don't think they match laser scans of peaks. I'm not sure. Well, for whatever reason, there was kind of like a thing going like this. Things were not matching. Okay, I can assure you that my match matched that. Okay, all right. So, and in fact, I wanted to prove that, and I asked for the latest laser scan of the street, and I was denied to get it.
Well, we gave you one that you couldn't match, or you couldn't open to use for your program, right? It was the wrong format.
No, that was junk. Excuse me. There was nothing. That somebody gave you something that was not what it was, or what you think it was. I know enough about laser scans to. That was not an XYZ laser scan, and the other side knows what XYZ laser scan is because they gave me those before. Okay, so I wanted to see how accurate is my matching. Maybe my matching is also bad. I don't know, but I don't think so. I spent 20 years perfecting my projection matrix calculations. I mean, how can you spend 20 years on computing 11 numbers? That's what I've done. Okay, this is what I've been doing. So, and when I look at this, that's already wrong. Okay, if that is wrong, then everything else is questionable. Okay, that's number one. Okay, let's go down the road. Then at some point, the expert is combining the 3D model with a crime scene laser scan image, okay? And then trying to do sort of metrology, but he doesn't. He doesn't actually measure anything, okay, except for one thing, and I will mention that bit later. So then he is actually what he's doing, because he has a projection mapping, which he thinks is correct, which I think is not. He's moving his vehicle using this wonderful piece of software called 3D Max, which is fantastic. It's a beautiful piece. I wish I could design something like this, but I don't have 100 programmers to do it. And it's made not for this, okay? It's made for animation. So he basically animates this vehicle and he moves it by hand. He moves it and moves it and moves it, and this projection mapping at the same time projects it into the video. And he moves it until he thinks it matches the light, okay? And if you remember, then he draws these two circles. And the circles are to show how well you match the 3D model lights with the visible pattern front lights, okay? And then he says, oh, okay, so here's our best result. And then he does some kind of analysis on it, which I also disagree with. And then he says, okay, it matches. Now, what's wrong with this thing? All right, as I said, Swiss cheese. First of all, the mapping is wrong. Okay, but let's assume the mapping is right. What else is wrong? Moving this by hand doesn't give you the best position possible. Okay, so it's not like in our method that's the part that he didn't do because he doesn't have this math. It was not provided to him by his off-the-shelf software, and he cannot obviously make his own, at least he didn't. His method does not provide a best possible position, therefore he cannot estimate the best possible error. So, but you say, okay, why do I care? I mean, if I can position in such a way that everything perfectly matches, then it's fine anyway. If you're lucky enough in three-dimensional space, find the right position that gives you zero error, that's wonderful. But his error is not zero. He's drawing these two circles. By the way, nobody does the circles. It's something new. Maybe he should publish a paper. People use points. The way to measure error is not by drawing two circles and then saying, what's the distance between them? Is it preserved? That's what he's doing. What if the circles end up on the other end of the car and still have the same distance? Then what? Is that a good thing? I don't think so. Okay. So it's called aerial error. He's introducing something new, probably wonderful, but not thought through very well. Okay. And you can see, and you can put this picture. I don't have it, but I have it in my mind. So his circle slided just halfway out of the driver side light. Now that's a huge error. In my book, that would be like, I don't know, 15, 20 pixel error. Okay? And by the way, that can give you any, I mean, if you allow this error, you can match anything to anything. Okay? Okay. But that's not the worst part. Okay? That's not the worst part. The worst part, he forgot the elephant in the room. He took a frame that didn't have the back light. He matches only front lights. Well, okay, now why should you match them? Then he matches the backlight when he conjectures to be something else, which is whatever. Then he matches by itself. Okay, let's just examine a little bit math here. First of all, with one light, you can match anything to anything. Everybody knows this. If you have a point, an object point, and then there is something in the image, you can always put your object so that that point matches. Now,
that's the same you do with the trooper that looks like it's...
Yeah. So basically, put it this way. Okay, for a general 3D motion, there are what we call 6 degrees of freedom. 6 degrees of freedom allow you to match any 3 points perfectly. I don't care what. You can just put 3 points, and I will always find a position close enough, far enough somehow to match it. So you say, so what? Why, Dr. Whitney, you're also doing 3 points. Well, there's a madness to my method. You have to do it in such a way that there's another constraint, that something is on the floor. And in fact, he's using this constraint because his software does that. So in this sense, if he were to use 3 points, it's a sufficient constraint because there are only 3 degrees of freedom for the vehicle on the ground. Basically the angle and the position. The position gives you x, y, two numbers, and angle is 1, 3, right? We all can count 3. Okay. Now, how many points do you need to match 3 degrees of freedom? Well, basically 1.5, but there's no such thing, right? So given 2, you end up with something 4 equations, 3 unknowns, and it's a little bit what we call over-constrained, but it's not good enough, because with a teeny tiny error, again, you can match any 2 points. It is bringing the third point, which is the only other thing that we have, ends up with 3 degrees of freedom and 6 equations. So you have, so you end up with, correct, 3 points. Each point gives you 2 coordinates. That gives you 6 equations. And you have 3 unknown, which is where the car is and how it's oriented. Now that is pretty good, okay? At that point, it's pretty good game, okay? So when in other words, the name of the game is when you match a model to data, okay? You need to get as much data as you can. You can just throw away. Excuse me. You cannot throw away the data. It's like throwing away gold, okay? Because they have to match together. You can't separate them, okay? That's what he did. My question was why? I don't know. I don't have this question. Maybe he couldn't match it, or he didn't think about it.
Objection, speculation.
Let me interrupt you at this point. It's after 12, so we'll go ahead and take our noon recess at this time. And at least one of our jurors can't be here this afternoon, right? Okay, so we'll resume with the jury at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Okay, again, keep in mind the admonitions previously given to you, not to form or express any opinions about the case, not to discuss the case, and we'll see everyone back at 9:30 tomorrow morning.
No meeting.